This is Dan Yeeman from Open City, Painted Black, and Bitter Branches, and you are listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with another brand new episode. And on the show this week, we have Christina Michelle of Gouge. Gouge's new LP, Deep Sage, just came out on Death Wish Inc., and I urge everybody to go check it out. It's excellent. And so is this conversation with Christina. We learn about her background, we learn all about how Gouge came together, and we learn about how Deep Sage almost didn't happen. This week we also have the Artist Spotlight interview with David Gastiaburo of HEAVYHEX. Their debut LP will be coming out on Bridge 9 Records, and we learn about the band, we learn about David. So make sure you stick around for the Artist Spotlight interview at the end of the episode. But before we get to all that, here's how you can support The New Scene. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at New Scene Pod. Reviews. Give us 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Hit the 5-star button on Spotify or open the podcast app on your iPhone. Search The New Scene, scroll down a bit, hit that 5-star button. Shirts. We have shirts for sale at Death Wish Inc. Pick one up. It's a great way to support the show. Also, you can always email me at newscenepod@iodinerecords.com. Also, don't forget to support Iodine Recordings. The Furnace Fest lineup has been announced and it looks great. Iodine Recordings will be returning as a sponsor and vendor, and make sure you catch Stretch Armstrong at the fest. They will be playing Furnace Fest again. Stretch Armstrong just released the Revealing 12-inch EP. That's their first new music in nearly 2 decades, and it is awesome. The pre-order for the vinyl is up. Get it while it lasts. The Horsewhip Tour is underway. Go see them if they're playing near you. Check their page for a full list of dates. One Line Drawing Sketchbook 2X LP is available now for pre-order. No Man just dropped a new video for Glitter and Spit. Make sure you go check that out. The Glitter and Spit LP comes out this week, and I think it's one of the best records of the year. Remember, No Man has 2 gigs coming up, May 3rd in Richmond, Virginia at Richmond Music Hall, and May 4th in Brooklyn. Those gigs are with Strike Anywhere, and No Man has record release shows this week as well. Check their Instagram for a full list of all dates. And there's a second pressing of the Iron Roses self-titled LP that's available now. Get it before it's gone. Also, don't forget to support this month's sponsor, Persistent Vision Records. Persistent Vision was our sponsor for the month of March, and you know what? I'm going to miss them, and I'm going to think about them. I'm going to think about all the great bands on the label, Page 99, Abak, Lagrimas, Masa Nera, Goetia, and a whole bunch of others. I'm going to think about how we can order merch from their website at persistentvisionrecords.com and deathwishinc.com. I'm going to think about how I discovered Prisoner. They just put out Putrid Obsolete. That's their sophomore LP on Persistent Vision Records. Brutal record. Amazing stuff. Make sure you check it out. And I'm also going to think about how Page 99 is playing Post-Fest this year. You gotta check them out if you're going to the fest. Legendary band. And you know what else I'm going to think about? I'm going to think about how Farn, The Departure of Consciousness, is available now for pre-order. That's the 10-year anniversary reissue of the debut LP from Funeral Doom Ensemble, Farn. They've got East Coast tour dates starting in May and West Coast dates in June. They've got a brand new LP coming out later this year on Persistent Vision Records, who you can follow on Instagram at Persistent Vision Records. Make sure you follow them to get all of the latest updates. Okay. So listen, check back in with me after the interview with Christina. We'll do a quick wrap-up. And remember, we're talking to David Gastiaburo from HEAVYHEX at the end of the show. But right now, We are going to speak to Christina Michelle of Gouge. Enjoy. All right. We are here now with Christina Michelle. Christina, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, it's great to have you here. And look, there's a lot of exciting things going on. Gouge Away is taking the world by storm. We're playing a lot of awesome gigs. We have an excellent new album coming out, Deep Sage. And look, we're going to cover that and probably a lot more too. But first, Christina, I want to ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. It's been a very overwhelming time. But I was just getting, trying to calm down and be present and be in the zone for this. So I feel good right now. How are you feeling?
Me, I feel good. Let's see. All right. Last week was stressful because I switched computers, right? And I couldn't get things working. And when that happens, I get really nuts. And I figured that out. And then I was stressing about this show because, sometimes you hear from everybody and sometimes you hear from nobody. So I was like, okay, maybe the show's over now. No one's getting back to me. That's it. But then I heard back from some people. So now I feel good.
Okay, that's good.
What's stressing you out? What's going on?
It's funny because I remember with the whole rollout schedule with Burnt Sugar, I was so ready for the record to come out and waiting was painful. And this time I feel like it's going so fast. I just want everything to slow down. But it's just a lot. We have a lot. I think by the time this comes out, everything we've been working on will finally be out. So it's just been a lot of working in secret.
What kind of stuff do you have to do besides wonderful podcast interviews like this one?
I guess everything leading up to each single coming out, it's always more work than I realize. I always think the song comes out that day, cool. And then somehow it's just there's artwork that needs to be done. There's music videos, I don't know. Everything just has to come together in the right way. We're also working on all these tours. And even though none of it is announced yet, it's getting the flights and the schedules and the transportation and the merch. And it's so much work.
Yeah, it's a lot of stress, right? But it's all worth it. In my own bands, planning and putting things together can be a huge pain, but once you get up there and you actually play and everybody's really into it, that makes it all worth it. Same for this show. There's so much planning and emails and scheduling and editing and all kinds of stuff. But when you finally land the guests that you've been waiting for, like yourself, and put it all together and put it out there and everyone has nice things to say, it makes it all worth it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a lot of anticipation for your new record. We've got 3 singles out there. I've taken a look at some of the shows you have coming up and some of the shows you've played recently. It seems like there's a lot of interest, yes?
Yeah, there is. And we are definitely approaching things this time around with looking out for ourselves and each other more. In the past, we got asked to do a lot of tours and we were always saying yes. And this time I feel like we're in more of a position where we just want to take the things we're really excited for, which definitely makes it worth all the work also.
Nice. Are you living in Portland?
I do, yeah.
Did the whole band relocate to Portland?
No, just Tommy and I. Tyler is in Atlanta, Dylan is in Orlando, and Mick is in Fort Lauderdale.
So some of us are still in Florida.
Yes.
What made you want to relocate to Portland?
For all the places that I've been on tour, Portland always stood out to me. It's I always liked the shows here that we would play. And then it's also just gorgeous. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. Tommy and I always wanted to move to the West Coast, and it's also probably one of the most affordable major cities out here. So all wins.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the most memorable places I've ever been to on tour. I was there in 2002, I think it was, and I have not been back since, but I still remember it. Like you see all the hills with all those trees and everything, and the image is still burned in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, even just driving to the grocery store is beautiful.
How long have you been there now?
Since 2021. So we're on our third year.
And it's going good so far?
Yeah, I love it. I never want to leave.
You said you moved there with your bandmate Tommy.
Yes, and my partner.
Is that okay, that was going to be my question. Just bandmate or partner too?
Yes, both.
That's good. That's good. So you grew up in Florida.
Yeah.
Where at?
I grew up in like the Fort Lauderdale area. I feel like I've lived in every small city that makes up Fort Lauderdale in my life. I've moved a lot. And then I lived in Orlando for a few years before coming out here.
How did you like Florida? Now, I've been there more than once, and I'm going to put it in the same category as Los Angeles. Nice to visit, but wouldn't want to live there.
I can relate to that. I don't even know if I like to visit anymore, other than like my parents and my best friend living there. I mean, and our shows there are really good. If all of that was gone or changed, I don't know if I'd ever go back. It's hot. It's hot and sticky and wet. It's very uncomfortable to live in. The politics have only gotten worse over the years, as everyone is aware of, and it just is not a place that represents me at all.
If someone's voluntarily moving to Florida, now I know this is a stereotype, but part of me thinks, what's wrong? Something must be wrong, because in my opinion, the politics are out of whack, yes, and not in tune really with what I'm down with. And just the gun laws make things very dangerous, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like open carry and stand your ground and all that stuff. But beyond all that, the weather, I could never get down with the weather because I hate hot weather. I don't like it. And if I didn't have all the seasons, I think I would be very unhappy.
Yeah, I think the weather in Florida is one of the worst things in the world.
So you said you moved around a lot. What was going on? Was it a family thing, or did you just move a lot when you got older? What was going on?
I think it was family stuff and just life. I remember I went to like 3 different middle schools. Yeah, I don't really know I mean, I think it's just like life, you know. My parents had moved around when we were younger, and I feel like that was probably to adapt to having children. Some of the schools I would have been placed in were like had pretty bad reputations, so I feel like they were like trying to look out for us in that way. My parents got divorced, and then I moved out with my mom, and just life stuff.
How old were you when that happened?
Probably 21.
It's probably still difficult at that age, right?
Yeah, I might have been a little bit younger. I always want to say my younger sister was 18. I think they might have been trying to wait until we were technically adults. Yeah, it was around that age. I might have been a little younger. I don't know. It's hard for me to look backwards. I just have a younger sister.
Oh, okay. So there's 2 of you.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about your relationship with music in terms of hardcore or punk or, you know, whatever it was you were into in general. Like, what's your trajectory? What grabbed you? Tell us about it.
My parents both grew up very heavily in like the rock scene, kind of like whatever was going on at the time. My mom, when she was young, was working nightclubs, and it was when nightclubs were especially cool in like the 80s and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was like a lot of goth clubs, and like pop music was very cool in the 80s too. And my dad grew up as a guitarist, and he was in bands, and that's how my parents met. So I grew up very much in that world. And I just remember even being a little kid, and our house was just like full of CDs and records and stuff. Also, along with my mom working in the nightclubs, she always got music before like the music that was also being pitched to like radio stations. So she'd bring a lot of that stuff home, and I got to hear a lot of the music before it went on the radio. And I think that was very formative for me.
Did you ever bring it to school and say, like, look what I've got? This isn't even out yet.
Oh, yes, I did. And I would like make mixtapes for people, and we would like play them on the bus, and it was awesome. Like if everyone was into like Ashanti and Ja Rule, I'd be like, I have their next single.
I love that. Yeah, sometimes now I get stuff early, and even though people don't care most of the time, I'll be like, oh, I got this advance here that I'm going to listen to. And they'll be like, yeah, that's great. I feel like it was more like it would have been cooler back then because you really had to know somebody, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if it is easier now, like with email and like the internet and stuff, to just kind of like hit a bunch of people at once and be like, here's this new record.
Yeah, it is. There's always a private SoundCloud or something out there.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you and how did you decide you wanted to start performing? When does that happen?
I always kind of like dreamed of it. Even when I was a kid, I would watch a lot of like, my parents were always watching band documentaries, and that's where I learned about what touring is like and seeing people living in vans and tour buses and stuff. And that life seems so intriguing to me, but I also never thought it was like a real dream because all these bands were like men, just all men.
Yeah.
So it was like an idea that was like really cool to me, but I just did not think it was real. But yeah, when I was a teenager, I started going to shows and saw people my age playing music, and I don't know, I think I just fell in love with the scene and kind of still never thought I was going to be in a band, but I don't know, I just wanted it still anyway.
How did you make it a reality? Because I did that same thing. I always wanted to be in a band, and it always seemed impossible. But then I discovered the local scene, and all my friends were playing shows in these incredible bands. And I couldn't play any instruments at the time, so I'm like, I'm going to be a hardcore vocalist. But it was like this deep, dark secret, and I was too ashamed to let anybody know that I actually wanted to do that. So I would drive around and like scream along to songs to like train myself for the day I was going to get into a band. And how did you do it? How did you manifest it into reality?
I totally get that too. I think the way I had tried a few times, and it just wouldn't go anywhere. And like, I'd have a band practice with a handful of people, and we would just never meet up again. It's so hard to get a band started and like actually like stay consistent.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people probably relate to that.
It still is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just found like the original group that was Gouge, like the original people. And I think I just kind of pitched it to them as like, all I want to do is play one show. I just want to record an EP. Like, let me get this out of my system. And then I convinced everyone to do that with me. And at the time, it was kind of everyone's just like project for fun. Like they all had their bands that they took seriously. And then Gouge was like, oh, that's just Christina's thing. And I like kind of had to take responsibility for everything too, because it became Christina's thing. And I was like burning our CDs and making the art and getting our shows and stuff. And yeah, I think just pitching it to them as like this small little idea that I also thought that was as far as it was going to go. But we ended up having fun and people kept asking us to play. So we just kept going.
How old are you at that time?
I feel like I was around 22 or 23.
And what kind of bands are you into at the time? Like, who's your inspiration?
Definitely Painted Black. Cyril Takes the Square, Seisha. Those are the top 3 for sure.
That's good stuff. So it sounds like you really took initiative for this thing. You're burning CDs, you're making the artwork, you're booking shows, you're really getting things moving.
Yeah. Making like little t-shirts, funny little designs for merch.
I'm guessing you just continued playing around in Florida. How does it start to become more of a serious thing?
Yeah, it was just kind of like we open the shows our friends are on, or we play the house show and we basically like said yes to anything we were asked to do. And then I think it started becoming like this touring band is playing here, like, and we get asked to do that. And then that feels like an accomplishment. I remember one of the first big shows we got asked to do was to open for Negative Approach, and it felt so validating.
Wow.
Yeah, I think just becoming like, you get a little hungrier, and you want to see what else you can do. And then I remember Gloss was a big one for me too, where when they put out that first EP, I was obsessed with it, and I reached out to them and I was like, if you play Florida, please let me put the show together. And then they wanted to do like a run of shows. So we got to be on like all the Florida and I think Alabama, Birmingham. And again, that was just like, whenever we reached a little bit, it was working out.
Yeah. Plus when you're building momentum like that and getting validation by playing with bands you look up to and bands that you love, I think it propels you even more, right? Because I've been in bands that I only kind of liked, and we would play shows that were okay, right? And so you're only going to be so motivated. But if you are at the helm of this thing and good things are happening, it's going to push you forward even further, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So is this around like 2013 2014 when the band is getting rolling?
Yeah, I would say up until around early Dies era.
Did you find it difficult as a young woman in the scene down in Florida, like booking shows or getting help with things?
Yeah, absolutely. I never used to like to talk about my experience in the scene. I think because I just didn't want to like bring any negative attention to myself. But at this stage of my life, I feel like I'd rather just be honest with my experience because it's my own experience. But
yes.
Yeah, it was incredibly hard. When I would go to shows, I would look around the room and there would maybe be 3 to 5 other girls there. And it's hard to be like taken seriously. I was booking shows since I was 16 just because I loved it so much. Like I just loved being part of something. And even then it was like I could never really prove myself to the scene that I was working so hard to be a part of. And that's like honestly why I give Painted Black a lot of credit in my life. Because I reached a point where like for years and years and years of trying to find a home in that scene and it just not working out, I just got tired of it. And then seeing Painted Black for the first time and hearing them like talk between songs and explain what their songs are about, I felt like they were like talking to me and just being like, you do belong here. And that just made me like want to work 100 times harder.
That's pretty amazing that seeing them gave you that motivation, because it can be hard right now. When I got into this music in, I don't know, 1998, there was only 2 bands I can think of that had a woman in them that I would see regularly. And shows were certainly mostly just guys, right?
Mhm.
So it sounds like that was the same thing you experienced while you were doing things. And you know what? Pretty impressive to be 16 years old and booking shows already.
I think so too. I don't even know how I did it. I was so shy.
Yeah, how like these are things I wanted to do, but I was just way too shy. I couldn't imagine, I don't know, finding a venue and organizing the bands and like figuring out how much people get paid. How did you figure all that out?
Um, a lot of it was all trial and error really, and it was a lot of starting small and working with bands who were just happy to have a show as far south as South Florida. um, I would work with very punk bands who were just like, we're just happy to get to play, and luckily I was able to start at that level and build up. This is another thing I never talk about, but one of the bigger shows, like early on, I don't remember how old I was or what year it was. It was after a few years of booking shows, but I met a promoter in Tampa, and he saw something in me, and he was like, Ceremony is coming to Florida. Can you book their South Florida show? I'm booking the Tampa show. And I was like,
Whoa.
yeah. And in order to get the venue that was the appropriate size for them, I had to put down a deposit of my own money. And I was young. Like I did not have money to do that.
Right.
But I was literally at the bank about to take out a deposit to book Ceremony in South Florida. And then I got a text that people were mad that I didn't just give the show to like the male promoter who had been booking shows longer than me. People thought I should have just like given it to him. And I was like, you know what? Fine. Like, fine. I'm not going to take out my own money and have this huge risk just for like everyone to be mad at me. So I didn't do it, and I gave it to him, which is also funny because me and him had no beef whatsoever. Like we supported each other. But it was just weird scene politics stuff. And yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. And now like we're going to play with them next week.
Yeah, I saw that you were playing some shows with him. That's got to be especially great, right? Because I know they share Andy from Painted Black, and seeing Painted Black is what motivated you to keep going, yes?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
How stupid, though, for people to tell you that you should give up the show and then that actually happened, though. That's sad.
Yeah, it is. It was very frustrating at the time. That's why I was like, what am I doing? Like, I would give everything for this scene, and they just don't want me to.
Have you seen things get better over time? From my perspective, it seems like it's somewhat better because I see a lot more different kinds of people at shows than just dudes. I see way more bands with women, and I think that's exciting. Like, what's your perspective?
Yeah, I think across the board, it has definitely gotten better in that sense. And I feel like too, when Gouge had started, a lot of new people started coming to shows and telling us like, we always wanted to be involved in hardcore, but we just did not belong, but we feel like we do here. And I felt the same way. I was like, we're creating something else, like we're creating our own little division, I guess. It is, yeah, I think it's gone a lot better. I also try to be careful because I feel like from coming from Florida, I feel like when I talk about my experience in hardcore, it's like, this is my experience in my scene. I can't speak for everyone else. And I'm sure there are scenes around the country that are still like behind, But I feel like overall things are getting better.
That's good. That's good. It's a good lesson, too, that you really just need to take things into your own hands to get things started because no one's going to hand it to you. Well, maybe some people get it handed to them, but I sure as hell didn't. I had to fight to get into my first band. I had to put in a lot of work, and I did all the same things you did, sitting there creating album art and burning CDs and doing all the work. And you did all of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
These are all the things you have to do to create your own space, like you said.
Yeah. What bands were you from?
Well, a lot of local stuff in Philadelphia, where I'm originally from. Let's see.
When did you live in Philly?
2003 through 2012.
Did you know the band Ceasefire?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. They're from Philly, and they're also very like formative for me at that period.
But I'm very familiar with Paint It Black.
Oh yeah, I bet. That's awesome.
I've had Dan on the show, which is exciting. And when I got into this music, I've always been a fan of his bands, Lifetime, Kid Dynamite. And then when I heard he was in a new band where he would be the vocalist, that was exciting. So, you know, what was the show where you saw them and you kind of got inspired by them? When was that?
They were on tour with Propagandhi. I don't remember what year it was, but it had to be 2013 or maybe a little earlier.
And you just got inspired by the things Dan was saying, and it must have been some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I can't even remember exactly what he was saying, but I was burnt out. I was like, I can't care about this anymore. Like, I'm done. And I had friends who for a while were like, you would love Paint It Black. And I'm like, I don't care. And then, and somehow I ended up at that show. I have no idea. I don't remember anything about it except watching them and during their set being like, this is my favorite band. Like, they just are now. And I still love them.
Gouge Away continues on. We have our debut record. Okay, is it Comma Dies or just Dies?
Comma Dies is what we always wanted it to be called, but everyone says Dies, so it's okay.
Because I wanted it to be Comma Dies because I just really like that name. And it's like Mad Libs. Like, it's so you could just put anything in there and it works.
That's why it's named that. Yeah, thank you.
I love it. See, I get it. I'm on the level here. So after that comes out, do we see things starting to pick up more?
Yeah, we put out that record. A local label, 86 Records. They helped us out a lot. Without them, we never would have like pressed records. Actually, when they asked us to, we were like, "Are you like sure? That's your money. Like what? Like that's your risk. Like what are you thinking?" But they also believed in us more than we did. And yeah, actually, Touche Amore and Ceremony took us out on our first, like, other than us doing DIY tours up the East Coast, like, they're the first bands that took us out to do a little bit more.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you're telling me your first real tour was with Touche Amore and Ceremony?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was awesome.
How long was that?
I remember I think I went to LA and back. So probably just a few weeks. I don't think it was a month or anything.
Pretty amazing though, right?
Yeah, it was very memorable, very fun. Getting to know both of those bands has been amazing. They've definitely like supported us ever since then. That was 2016 and they're still like in our corner, which is really nice.
So around that time, how old are you? Still like early to mid 20s?
I would be 26 then.
Okay. So what is your life like at that point? I mean, was music the only thing you had in mind that you wanted to do? Was that the only thing you were focused on? What was going on?
Yeah, I was a kindergarten teacher. So in the time that Gouge was just supposed to be for fun and just everyone's side project, like it really, really was, because I was a full-time teacher. But once we started gaining some momentum and also learning that the education system is really messed up, then I just wanted to take this seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, the education system is messed up because they don't pay teachers nearly enough, and you have to pay to get all these certifications constantly so that you can still teach. And you read all these horrible stories about teachers having to pay their own money to buy supplies for the kids because the district won't pay for it. Did you experience anything like that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was just thinking recently about how I worked at a school where whenever the parents would donate supplies to the classroom, we had to turn it all in to the administration, and they would keep it all locked in a closet. And we would have to beg, even though like the parents were donating paper and glue and all this stuff for my room, I had to go beg the administration for it, and I wouldn't get it. And I was just thinking about this story where a teacher friend of mine, we had to sneak paper in through a side door and like hide it under jackets and stuff because somehow one of the parents found out that this was going on, and she's like, this is insane. Like, I can get a discount on paper. Let's sneak it in. And we had to sneak paper into our classrooms.
Are you serious? They confiscate donated goods.
Yeah. And I would get like evaluated all the time. Like the admin would come and sit in on our classes and rate the teachers and like honestly make us feel like we were never good enough. And I started writing on the whiteboard all the supplies I was asking for and the date that I asked for them, so that if they sat in on my room and were trying to give me any shit, they had to see this list also.
Boy, I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize it was this bad.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider having your own secret supply of supplies like in your classroom so you didn't have to go through the administration?
Yeah, I'm sure at some point I figured it out. I remember being so strict with my kids too. Like, it was a big deal if they like wasted their glue or their crayons or their markers. Like, it was a big deal. Because I didn't know if we would ever get any.
The ravages of capitalism don't escape anything. I was thinking about this recently. Okay, I went to Catholic school because we lived in bad school districts at one point, and my parents wanted us in better schools. So we went to Catholic school, right? And the Catholic school had a deal with some uniform company. And they're like, you have to buy your uniforms from this place. And if you don't, you're going to get in trouble and we're going to know. And of course, the place marked up the pants and the shirts like 50%. And my parents were like, we don't have money for that. We're not doing that. So they would buy the stuff like at a department store that looked similar. And I would be like, Mom, why can't we just buy it at the place they say? You know, why do we have to be different? I don't want to get in trouble. But you know what? They were right to not buy the marked up stuff and circumvent this system of capitalism.
It is so crazy. It is so messed up.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How do we get the attention of Death Wish Inc. for the next record, Burnt Sugar?
We did a 7-inch, the Swallow Sweat 7-inch. Jeremy Baum had us put it out on Secret Voice Records, which got it across Death Wish's desk. And Jeremy was like helping us get the attention of Death Wish. And I remember Trey like came out to one of our shows when we played in Philly. And I love the story of when Death Wish decided to work with us. Someone in the office was playing the Swallow Sweat 7-inch, and Trey walks out and is like, wow, who is this? I want to work with a band that sounds like this. And they're like, we are. It's Gouge Away.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So Burnt Sugar. Now, this record certainly got the attention of a lot of people, right?
Yeah, it did.
Tell us about that. What kind of good things were happening with the band? What was going on?
Wow, it's hard to think about that time. It felt like I mentioned how with the release of the record, I was like so excited and anxious and ready to just get it all out. And it felt like those months leading up to it coming out felt like forever, where now it feels like it's so fast. But I just feel like, I don't know. It was like once the record came out, we were being asked to tour with like every different type of band. And that was a pretty big shocker to us.
That's got to be good to be offered a lot of different shows like that too, because well, one, you get to play with a lot of different kind of bands, and two, it's probably broadens your audience because you're in front of a lot of different people.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because after Burnt Sugar came out, up until COVID, we were on tour the whole time, and we were always supporting other bands. And I feel like we weren't even seeing how our hard work was paying off because we were just always support.
Yeah.
And I feel like it wasn't until this last year when we hit the East Coast in 2023 and did a headline, that was when I was like, I think that was from all the touring we did. I think all of that actually did pay off. And here these people are. Like, they're coming to see us, not just like the other headlining bands.
Yeah, it's like bands are like a momentum. You just have to spend years and years building this momentum. It's like a tsunami. The water pulls back and it's building, building, building. And then all of a sudden it hits. It's here.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even realize what's going on.
Yeah.
I read a quote from you. Burnt Sugar is in the direction of mental health, which is really important, affecting everyone in my life, including me too. Is that something you talk about or you think about a lot?
Yeah, it's kind of my whole life.
Talk about that. It's a recurring theme on this show a lot of times because, well, you know what? Let me hear your perspective first.
Yeah, I think with Burnt Sugar, I feel like I had to fight for that to be valid. Because with Comma Dies, that was a very politically charged record. And I feel like when you start off writing stuff like that, people always expect that and want you to stay in that lane. But when Burnt Sugar, when we were writing that record, when we were on tour and like writing that and everything, my mom was hospitalized with a heart condition. So I would go on tour, be at the hospital, go on tour, be at the hospital. Like, that was my whole life. And it was like, I can't really think about anything other than the mental health side of this. Like, this is my whole life. If I was going to try to write a politically charged album, it wouldn't have been honest at that time. So I feel like I had to like validate that to people. But honestly, like, I've always been interested in learning about mental health. It's part of like why I wanted to be a teacher. It's like the main genre of books that I like reading. I have like rituals in my life that are reliant on mental health and making my life better. I've gone to therapy. I've tried yoga, meditation. Like, it's always something I'm exploring, and I'm glad because it's definitely making my life better.
What's in your mental health routine in modern days? What do you do?
I try to set time aside to read. Right now, I'm reading No Bad Parts, which I don't know where the book's going to go because I'm still reading it, but it's really, really awesome right now. And it's definitely making me learn a lot about myself. And I follow like astrologers, which might sound funny to some people, but it's something I like. Every single Monday I listen to like the astrology for the week, and it just helps me feel grounded whenever I feel like things are out of control or I'm having a bad day or I don't know how to handle a situation. I always just like refer back to that.
No, I like that. Yeah, mental health, very important to me too. And something I like to talk about a lot on the show because I know it helps other people. And, I've been through different phases of it myself, things going through things growing up, years of alcoholism and addiction, and then finally getting my act together with the help of psychiatry and group therapy and 12-step and all that fun stuff. So the recovery piece is still something very present in my life, and that's great because it keeps me connected with people, and I get helped, and I can help others, and just making time for myself, like you said. All right, here's a good example. I'm a workaholic, right?
Yeah.
I like to be working on stuff constantly. Are you the same way?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So whether the podcast never ends, it's always going. There's always stuff to do. And I like that because that's what I've wanted my entire life. But, I've been in bands or band on top of that. And that takes up a lot of time. So here's what I realized recently. I need to take a day for myself every once in a while because the last 2 Saturdays, I had nothing to do. Like nothing. I could just have the whole day to myself. And I just ate food and played video games all day and lazed about. And I loved it. I felt like I was high. I was like, I need to do this more often.
Yes, definitely. I'm cheering you on, but I have a hard time making space for myself too. And then when I do, it feels like an accomplishment. It's like, I took care of myself today. I feel so good. Like, why don't I do this more often?
But I'm crazy because even when I have a day off, I make a checklist of like leisure activities to do. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this and that, and I'm going to play these 3 games, and I'm going to get this far in this game, and I'm going to watch this movie. So is it leisure if I'm still making a list out of it?
We'll say yes. Yeah.
I think I'm going to say yes. It has to be. It has to be. All right, so we're on Death Wish Inc. Burnt Sugar is out. Everyone loves it. And then we hit the pandemic. Now, the band took a bit of a break leading into and after the pandemic, yes?
Yeah.
What happened?
We were writing a record. We were writing Deep Sage. We didn't know it yet, but we were. We had a whole 2020 was all planned. We had all these tours lined up. We had recording lined up, everything. And, then the world, everything stopped. Everything got canceled or postponed. And I always want to fix everything. I'm a problem solver. I can't take just like everything's canceled. You have to stop now. Like I can't take that. So I was trying everything I could to like get Gouge to keep working on something. Like let's keep writing. Let's keep whatever. And it just wasn't happening. I think we were all like very burnt out from all the touring we had done. And then it took a blow to our morale to have everything we were working on just be canceled. We couldn't write anymore. We were trying to write from a distance and people were recording little parts to put into Bandcamp and stuff and or GarageBand. And we couldn't write like that. We just couldn't do it. We all have to be in the same room together. So I just I gave up. I was like totally burnt out. I couldn't fix anything, couldn't do anything. So I was like, I am going to stop and I'm going to focus on myself now. We also put out the Consider 7-inch like the day everything shut down. And the weeks after that, it was like the whole world was suffering. Everyone was hurting or sick or confused or upset. And then The country is on fire, and there's all the protests are happening, and we're like, we can't fucking push a 7-inch like during the state of things. We can't do that. So we just stopped.
So how did things get started back up again?
It was a couple years of I did therapy, which was it was life-changing. I needed it so bad, and I kept not taking care of myself for years in order to like be on tour and push the band further. So getting a couple years to actually be in therapy and actually deal with things was incredible. And we had demos we recorded in February of 2020, and we all really loved them. And the guys kept bugging me for the whole 2 years. Every once in a while, the group chat would start up again, and someone would be like, we should put out these songs. They're really good. We should put them out. And I was like, no. I don't want to. But then something happened in, I think it was New Year's before 2022, where I revisited them again. Maybe it was just the magic of New Year's Eve. I don't know. But I was listening to the songs, and they really hit me that day. And I took like 24 hours to think about it before I got anyone excited. But I was like, okay, if they're all in, then I'll do it.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you did, because Deep Sage is on the way now, and there's 3 singles out there right now, and I love it. It's my favorite stuff of yours I've heard yet, especially Dallas. That is the jam.
Thank you.
Yes. I like that, you can seamlessly bounce between like the heavier, noisier stuff and then have a song like Dallas, and it just works.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny. Like, we wrote this record like under the radar for a while. And that gave us the freedom to just write a record that we love. And all the outside expectations are like, it doesn't sound like Burnt Sugar, that doesn't sound like Common Dies. Like, we weren't really thinking about that anymore. We were just thinking about this. But it's funny how when things start to come out and you start realizing like, oh, people are going to hear this. Dallas was one where we've just been like, oh, people are going to hate this song. And when it came out too, all the like first reactions to it were like 6-minute Gouge Away song. And I was like, oh yeah, that is pretty weird.
I didn't even realize it was 6 minutes. See, it's that good.
Thank you.
So the record is coming, and we're excited about that. Is there like an overall theme to the record? How do the ideas come together for it? What are we singing about with this one?
We wrote so many songs that I actually wrote about so many things. We recorded 17 songs, but there's going to be 11 on this record. So where it ended up in all of the different things I've written about, there's some stuff, always on the topic of mental health. I think Dallas is a good example of that. There's a lot of like, the world is very scary.
Yes, it is.
The future looks very scary, so that's definitely a theme on there. Sorry, you could probably hear that. Yeah, Dallas is a good example of the themes of mental health. And then I wrote some of these songs before we broke up. So a good chunk of the songs are very meta and just about being in a band and being on tour and my mental health in those conditions. Yeah. And I also noticed in the writing of this, before COVID, when we were writing songs, I was still writing from that place of like pointing the finger at other people, like taking my anger out on others and like what other people are doing wrong. But then I realized revisiting everything, and it probably has a lot to do with therapy, but I turned a lot of the lyrics back at myself. And I feel like in the past, it was scary for me to write about me and my feelings and myself and all that stuff. But I feel like this time around it was important to actually like kind of take responsibility for my life and choices and the condition I'm in.
I like that. Yeah, that's a big part of the mental health journey, I think, at least for me, because my whole life, well, I wanted people to feel sorry for me because of things I had been through, or I blamed everyone else for everything. You know, they have everything, I have nothing. Everyone's keeping me away from what I want. Everyone is against me, all that stuff. And my perspective has shifted over the years too. You know, I don't want to carry around all that baggage. I'll take accountability for my piece of everything and move on. We have to.
Definitely. I've learned that a lot of the times, as much as I might be mad at other people for certain things, a lot of it comes down to what I was allowing myself to put up with. And that's like my own responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah, that too. Because I think back to some situations and I was like, why did I stay in that situation for as long as I did? But you can't really see it when you're in it. That, I mean, hindsight is 20/20 for a reason.
Yeah.
You said your mom was in the hospital for a heart condition. How is she? What's going on there?
Yeah, thank you for asking. She is a lot better. She had heart surgery a few years ago, and she was like in such a weak condition that they wanted her to walk like even in little tiny increments for like up to 30 to 45 minutes in a day. Like it's like even if you walk to the corner or walk to the refrigerator, like make it add up to that much. But now she can like walk like 3 miles and she's riding her bike all the time. She goes to yoga. Like she is super healthy. She's doing really well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. What does she think of this whole band thing and everything you're doing?
She's so supportive. She will probably listen to this. She goes to our shows when we play in South Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sometimes it would be easier if our family didn't come. Not to sound rude. I appreciate that they want to go. But you know, it's like having your family come out. It's like, well, you got to kind of like show them around, entertain them, give them attention, all that stuff. She would be like, I'm fine. I could be on my own. Like she would say those things, but you still feel responsibility. Like you want them to be comfortable and you don't want to ignore them or make them feel alone. So I don't know.
No, I get it. And then these shows can get rowdy too. I remember years ago, I was in a hardcore band that played in Boston and my aunt came to the show and I was like, please stand behind this barrier right here because things could get crazy. And they did. And I was like, I would have been horrified if someone like windmilled my aunt in the face while we were playing.
Yeah. Oh my God.
How rowdy do Gouge Away shows get? I haven't seen you yet. I'm trying to picture it.
Where do you live now?
In Brooklyn, in New York.
Oh, cool. I think we'll be there this year. Probably.
Oh, good. Good.
They get pretty rowdy, but I will say that generally people who go to our shows, they have fun. It's not about being a tough guy or hurting anyone. It's just about fun. And I love that. We played a show in Philly that was packed, like so many people. They sold more tickets than the capacity, so it was like kind of chaotic. But even after the show, the people who were running it were like, people who come to Gouge shows, they're so awesome. Like it's like they're respectful. They're just having a good time. Like no one got hurt. Like I don't know. I love to hear it.
That's nice. Yeah, and I'm curious because I've realized different bands have different vibes of activity at their shows. Like, for example, okay, last night I saw Jerome's Dream play, one of my favorite bands, right? And people go crazy during them, but they don't windmill roundhouse kicks, smash into each other. They all just kind of jump around and like bump into each other, like an old traditional mosh pit. And I like that. And then there's bands I like where there's crowd killing and it's still pretty violent, and so there's all different flavors of people going crazy for each different band.
Yeah, and I think there should be space for everything. I'm not against people behaving more violently if that's what the show calls for, and the band.
Yeah.
If that's what everyone in the room is down for, cool. I'm glad there's a space for you guys.
I have to say, I love watching it. I just don't like when I get hit.
Yeah.
Where in Philly did you play? Where was that show?
We played at the Yuki Club.
Yeah, I've heard of this place. This must be somewhere new because...
I think it is. It reminds me so much of the church. I imagine it's somewhat smaller, but I feel like the capacity is still 500 or something like that. But it had similar vibes, similar stage setup.
Yeah, the church is just classic. That's one of the first places I started going to shows. So, have you played there?
We did. We played with Painted Black there. Yeah.
You played with Painted Black at the church?
Yeah. Dream come true.
Wow. When was that?
2019. That was also one of the reasons why I was okay with Gouge ending. Was I was like, I got to play with Painted Black, so.
I love that you got to play with them. I was curious if it ever happened, and now I know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what we've got coming up. Deep Sage, the new record, comes out March 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want everybody to purchase it and listen to it and support it, right?
Yeah. Love it.
Love it. Need it. Listen to it. Give it to your friends. Tell them to listen to it.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm telling everybody out there, the first 3 singles that I've heard, I need more. I need to hear more.
Thank you.
Yes. And what shows and tours do we have coming up? Is there anything we can announce?
Yes. So by that time, we will have announced a tour with the band Mets. We all collectively, that's all of Gouge. That is one of our favorite bands. It is one of the best bands I've ever seen live. They're a freaking powerhouse. So I am excited to just get to see them, as much as I'm going to get to see them. Yeah. I don't know where to go from here because Mets is our dream band to tour with. So I'm what's after that? I don't know. Yeah. And then you will probably know that we have announced a European tour. And that is with Angel Dust and Teenage Wrist.
Really?
Yeah. It'll be fun.
Oh, wow. Teenage Wrist. Great band. Great band. I've had Marshall on the show too.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm going to listen to that one.
Yeah, their latest record is really good. Wow, so many good tours.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's got to be good to be back and just doing it, right? We've got an excellent record. We've got excellent tours. We're back. We're fully back.
We are back, yeah.
Have you toured Europe before, or will this be the first time?
We have a few times. Gouge has done a couple, 2-weekers. So not too extensive, but I toured with Nothing, and we toured Europe a lot. So I'm excited to bring Gouge to some of those other places.
All right. Well, Christina, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I love the band. I'm looking forward to more, and just best of luck to you and the rest of the band.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
And there you have it. Christina, Michelle. Amazing conversation. I'm really excited for Gouge Away. I hope they continue to grow. I hope more and more people continue to discover them. Their latest record, Deep Sage, is excellent. Excellent. Go check it out. I'm glad the record ended up happening. You heard Christina. The band was on a hiatus during the pandemic, but thankfully they got back together and gave us this record. and now they're back. But it was a compelling discussion. I loved all the conversation around mental health. You know, that's a favorite subject of mine. I'm glad that Christina is doing well. But I'm sad that she experienced what she did when she was working as a young promoter in South Florida. I mean, those people who gave her a hard time about the ceremony show and forcing her hand into turning the show over to the other promoter. Now, it sounds like the other promoter wasn't involved and they were friends. That's fine. But these people who were giving her a hard time, sad state of affairs. That story made me sad. But she won in the end. She's played with ceremony. She's played with Paint It Black. She's doing it. She is doing it. And I'm really happy for her and the band. So thank you so much, Christina, for coming on the show. And we are going to end the show now with our artist spotlight interview. Here's David Gastiaburo of HEAVYHEX. Enjoy. All right. We are here now with David Gastiaburo. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, Keith.
Yes, David, it's great to have you here, and I'm very excited to hear about the band HEAVYHEX, your band. So tell us, when did it get started? How did it get started?
We were just another product of a huge break of work during COVID, and while a lot of people were sitting home, our two guitarists kind of linked up and they started writing, and you know, they kind of just thought of a bunch of people that they felt were into the same genre and felt like jamming, just pretty much got everyone on board. And, you know, they tried some people out and eventually got to the group that we have now. And we all just hit it off right away. Everything seemed to make sense like really quickly. And it just, we just kept going with it.
How did you hook up with the band? Did you have to try out? Had you played with them previously?
I had played with Jeremy, our guitarist, in a different band prior, and that band we probably played together for only 6 months. That band was trying really hard to stick around, but just conflict of differences and just didn't work. And Jeremy and I wrote pretty well together when we were in that band, so it was nice of him to think of me. But I played guitar in that band originally, so when they first hit me up to do vocals on a project, just solely vocals, it was like the first time I had ever done anything like that. So I was a little reluctant about how it would go, or if people were going to like it, or if I was even going to like it. And when I got in the room, I threw some random stuff that I personally hated right away, but they all seemed to like it, so we just kept going with it.
Now, did you tell them that you hated it, or did you play it cool? Because that's my struggles. Like sometimes I'm just too overly critical and out loud. I need to be like, shut up, just go with it.
Yeah, that's 100% how I am. I do not hold back. I'll say it right away. I'll say it ugly too. I hate it. To me, it's like a toxic thing that I do, but I'd rather everybody in the room be straight, as upfront as possible, right as we go through it. That way, we just move forward. And I'll make faces the whole time, we won't even get to the point where we could talk. You'll already know off of like my body's demeanor, how I'm moving. It's such a bad, I have a bad poker face.
I do too. I'm a really bad liar. I've even been in situations where I just say the truth when I should lie. And people are like, why didn't you just lie? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get that completely.
So we're together. We're starting to write. Tell us about the beginning. Did you guys just wrote during COVID?
Yeah. So there was a good amount of time to work on these, and these guys were doing their homework and coming in with new stuff. But it seemed like it was going well really quick, and that everybody in the band was all really productive and wanted to put 100% into it. So before we even finished writing the songs, we had booked time to even get into the studio. So it just went real quick. And, we had recorded and we were throwing last minute things in it. And by the time recording was like ending and we were getting our mixes together and all that, quarantine was pretty much lifted and venues were popping back up, and that's when we saw like the scene really have a huge push, the community really backing it, and we were able to jump right into that, and it was just a real good time for us to have something new to share in a rising community on Long Island.
Yeah, shows came back really fast, and I feel like they've never slowed down. It's still really hard to book a show in a lot of cases, and just the amount of insanely good music out there, it's just overwhelming almost.
It is. There's a surplus. It's an amazing thing to see. And you're not kidding when it comes to booking. Like we're going through that right now, trying to put stuff together for next year, and it's intense. It's crazy how it's like, well, what's going on that week, and then you're catching rumors because they can't tell you yet, but you're like, damn, what would we be competing with this band? What's going on? So it's scary, but at the same time, it's so exciting to have all this, and it's just going to be a real busy year next year. I just know it for everybody.
Big time. So Stare was your debut release, the 2022 EP. Yes, that's what you guys were initially recording?
Yeah, that was Stare.
What's some of you? I really like the sound. It's a good post-hardcore band, right? I love that kind of stuff. Melodic, some moments of heaviness too. What is some of your guys' influences?
Right away, main influences are pretty much like Have Heart and Title Fight, some verse and some mindset in there. And, all of us in the band listen to those bands pretty heavy. So we went in there with kind of that idea, like, let's do it. And, it works for us. We all enjoy, we really love playing it. We love playing it live. And it just kind of flows natural. So it feels right, like as we're going. So it's been really good.
That's awesome. So after the record is released, after restrictions are lifted, did you get out there and start playing a lot?
We, booked like one or two shows off the bat, not thinking much, and had a good enough response where we'd ask for shows after that. People wanted to book us. And probably by like our fourth or fifth show, people were already asking us to start playing stuff. So we had a pretty quick response, and it was pretty cool having that support right up front at like the right time. And from there, people really threw us some stuff and started, really getting us some good gigs to play. We made some solid friends from each show, and it's just been super, like, what's the best way to put it? It's just really welcoming just to have such a quick response like that. So it's just been awesome.
That's amazing. I've read a list of some of the bands you've played with already. Silent Majority, Military Gun, Soul Glow, I Am the Avalanche. Is this true?
Yeah. Those like that's the crazy part to me. We're a band that's only been around for so long, and we're playing these bills to a lot of bands. I'm the Avalanche, for instance, or Silent Majority. Bands that like we listened to when we were younger. And like you wouldn't think, you never expected it years later to be offered those gigs, and just to support or to open is still just awesome experience.
It's the best, right? I'm in a new band I joined earlier this year. I'm 41 now, and I've played with some bands I've listened to growing up, and I never imagined it was going to happen. It's the best feeling.
Yeah, it just happens sometimes, just out of nowhere. That's the best part about it is you don't know what to expect, and you just got to keep riding it.
So we know that you got the attention of Bridge 9 Records, and we'll be releasing the debut LP on that label. So how does that come about?
I was in Massachusetts for American Hardcore Festival, and we were kind of doing like a whole weekend thing out there at some buddies. And while we were out there, I actually kept mentioning to everyone because we all collect vinyl, my group of friends, and kept mentioning the Bridge 9 store, that they opened up shop. You have to check it out. And we were all a little reluctant because we knew we were going to drop so much money when we went, but we had to make the trip because it's something you just got to go over there. And anyone listening, you do have to check it out. It's probably the best record shop there is. But we made the trip over there, and we spent way too much time in there, but also just enough time for Chris Wren to come in. Chris comes over, immediately knows that, we're from outside of town. We get talking. We talked to him for like a pretty long time. He's a super welcoming dude, a super friendly guy. We eventually get talking about how Bridge 9 started up, and they were getting their early funding off of standing outside Fenway selling like signs that said like "fuck the Yankees, Yankees suck." And he's obviously telling us this because we're from New York. He's poking fun. And we're laughing back, but he eventually goes, one of my most recent signings is a band from New York. And he dropped that line. I kind of looked at him with like, maybe this is, a shot right here. And I mentioned it, and he was like, you know what, just email me a little demo or whatever you got, and I'll give it a listen. He tells me this. I have no expectation of him actually doing it, it being Chris Wren, it being Bridge 9. But I sent up what I could, I don't know, probably the best of what I thought was like a press kit through email. Because again, we're a new band. We have the Stare EP. We have some pretty good starting shows to represent, but like I don't think it's enough for us to get any word back. But I sent him the email. He replies back right away saying thanks for coming to the shop. It was really cool, good talking with you guys. And then we don't hear anything from him for a while. A month later, we get another email saying that, hey, we've been listening to Stare a lot. It would be great if you guys, if you guys want to talk further. And we all were just like taken back for a moment because it seemed surreal how it happened. So we said absolutely. And a couple of Skype calls later, and we started getting everything in motion for the record.
Wow. That's amazing. And now you will be label mates with Have Heart. Yeah,
all of it is real. It's surreal. It's crazy. It's all stuff that like you would have told me, 10, 15 years from now, and I'd look at you with the dumbest face, like, all right, yeah, whatever. But it's definitely some wild stuff. And Chris always puts it best. Our whole encounter was very serendipitous, and we're excited, man. We're really excited. We want to make them proud over there.
That's amazing. So we've got True to You. That's the debut LP, which will be coming out on Bridge 9 Records. You recorded it with Jay Moss, yes?
Yeah, which is another surreal moment for us all. Again, another Bridge 9 band, Defeater being another influence of ours. And his new band now, Love Letter, which is also a great band. Their singer of their band is Quinn Murphy, who was the frontman of Verse. And they're all good dudes. It was awesome going out. One of the best experiences I've ever had in any of my bands was taking over the Moss residence. One of the most welcoming dudes. His whole family is super welcoming. He took us in. He doesn't, from what we hear, is he doesn't let people house with him anymore when he records. Like, you have to get a hotel. He needs his personal space. But he opened up to us being over there, and man, he's a trip. He's such a funny dude. Made it real easy working with him, real comfortable. And when we were putting this all in motion, his name came up. We were like, that's a no-brainer. Just like, Ceremony, Verse. Like, he's got so many names. Bane. That it made sense, especially being a post-hardcore or hardcore adjacent band. It's like that's the guy you go to.
Yeah, I think it's the perfect fit, and I see his name everywhere on everything now. He's really doing a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. He's busy.
Oh, big time. So are we happy with the record? I'm excited to hear it. I've heard the 2 singles. I really like what you guys are doing. It's right up my alley. It reminds me a lot of the post-hardcore stuff I grew up listening to, and a lot of the stuff that I like now. How do we feel about it?
We're all super proud about it. Every time we talk about it, there's always one person in the room that's like, this is the best thing that I've ever done. And we've all went through the list. We've all said it once. We're all super proud. Right off the bat, we knew it was going to be a kind of a big thing in our eyes because it was just getting, like, the minute we were getting just tones on guitar, which is the crazy thing, and which is another thing that I'll continue to push Jay this entire podcast. But we're getting tone, and it's already sounded like the guitars have been mastered. Like it just hearing back pretty much the scratch of what these guitars, and it's like, this is insane. And we've said it to Jay a bunch of times, to gas him up and pat him on the back, and he says the same thing every time. It's you don't go into the kitchen with bad ingredients. And it was kind of like, all right, that's like, this guy knows it. This guy's cool. I get it. But like right off the bat with that, there was just confidence throughout the entire thing, and hearing it back, hearing the masters back, we're just ready to go. Once we got tracking done, the whole entire time we're like, let's just release this thing already.
Yeah, it can be nerve-wracking, like the mixing and the getting it perfect and the anticipation of wanting to release it and have everybody hear it. It's nerve-wracking and exciting.
Absolutely.
How old are you?
I'm 33.
So what's your plan for the future? Do you think about that? Well, wait, let me ask you this. What do you envision for yourself in terms of the band and your life? What do you want to do?
I'm going to say yes to everything with this band, honestly. I've tried touring before with bands when I was younger, and it was, it was hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It was a lot harder then to do it. But thankfully, I work a job where just as long as productivity is up, I can kind of take my breaks when I can. And some of the guys have a solid amount of like PTO that they could take that will actually allow them to take pretty decent trips. So we can do it. We just have to make sure that we can all line it up, and we just want to get this thing going as big as it could get and keep going.
That's awesome. I'm very excited to hear the rest of the record, and I'm excited for you guys to get out there and play.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Keith, for having me.